That was back in, I think it was 2006. They were working on putting the ranch into a conservation easement. Because of the encroachment with homes and development from Missoula, they really felt like they wanted to keep the ranch intact. There's very little ranch land left where we are in our little valley. And they had run it by us at that point. We all thought it was a great idea. All my brothers and I, and then my two cousins thought, yeah, that's a fine idea. Keep it together. Maybe we don't keep it in the family, but it'll at least stay together. And so that conversation, I feel, helped us have a place to come home to. There was no threat to subdivide it or split it up. It was going to stay intact. I will tell you, because of the conservation easement, I didn't have to buy it at full fair market value because that had been erased due to the conservation easement. It was down in a much more cost effective way for me to get into the ranch because mom and dad had been paid that difference already. And that's part of what my brothers will inherit is what they got out of the ranch, putting the easement in way back. So that was a nice estate planning tool for us. It made it a lot less expensive.
I was kind of curious about the conservation easement and that was done before you guys moved home. Did you guys have much say in how the easement was written or what went into it? And then how that's been since you're like the next generation to deal with that agreement, how that's worked for you?
So we didn't have any direct say in how the agreement was written. They came to us back in 2005, I think, when they were planning it and asked us if we were okay with it and told us their plans. Here's what um, here's what the thought is on the agreement. We're going to set aside this chunk of ground around the buildings as the homestead site that we can have three homes. We can have our buildings. We can have cottage industry. We can have X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. But then all these pieces are now off limits. We can't subdivide. We can't do this. We can't do that. And it was fortunately, we work with a really good land trust. We work with Five Valleys, and they're fantastic. They are super supportive of agriculture and want local agriculture production around here. So they've been really good to work with. And I know not all of them are like that. So we didn't get into the nitty gritty details now, but we weren't planning on coming home either. We were building a home out there. We were going to make our careers and make our life in Oregon. I had no plans on coming back. I don't know if I would have made any changes to it. Looking at it today, I think we would have made a couple of changes. One of them, and I think Five Valleys has seen this. The land trust is hitting its 50th anniversary, and we had a conversation with them a couple of weeks ago. They came out and talked to our family about the succession planning because we're one of their first conservation easements to move into the next generation. And one of the things they've learned is you need to have a place to put another home for the kids that come home. So you can do that in your planning with that conservation easement is you can set aside building envelopes on other parts of the ranch. Now, for our place, there weren't a lot of great places to do that. There was a couple of corners that are dry and unirrigated that would be decent home sites. The downside for us is trying to finance a home on land that's owned in an LLC that you're not 100% owner of. Financing becomes horrible. It's a mess. So it worked out for us. We're not going to put up a home on the ranch. We're actually splitting off a piece of mom and dad's, buying it from them, and we'll build a home. So the way our family has done it, well, since dad and his brother, they own private residences on private land off of the ranch that they get to go home to. They don't have to ask your partner's permission if you want to put up a fence or do whatever. You have a private piece of ground that's yours. You don't have to answer to anybody else. So that's been healthy for the family for sure. But going back to your question about the conservation easement, I think they're learning that they need to maybe leave some home sites in the plan for family to come home to and put up a house. So that's one thing that maybe we would have changed, but we're definitely encouraging other folks as they're doing their planning to incorporate into their documents.
Yeah, I was curious since you're, like you said, the next generation, that I know that's always a concern of putting it in now for the future. So one generation in, the start of the test.
Yep. that's a really good thought. There will be tests going forward on the easement. Absolutely. Um, some of the tests that we've talked about is, we're always looking to create some other income. And in that document, they had left it open for cottage industry. What does that mean? Well, one of my hobbies when I used to have time was brewing beer. Well, we grow some feed barley. I could malt that up and start brewing on the ranch. I could start a distillery on the ranch. And I talked to the land trust about that. If we want to do this side hustle on the ranch using the resources of the ranch, can we do that? And they were all for it. But we did have that in place. It has to be in that 5-acre building envelope. It all needs to still kind of reside in that, which is fine. That's where all the utilities are. So that'd work out fine. But there was some flexibility to create other business interests on the ranch using ranch resources for other generations. Maybe they want to set up a greenhouse. All right. Potomac is a terrible place to try to grow things. But anyway, you could do that. We had a neighbor up here who actually built a completely self-contained microgreens greenhouse out of a shipping container. It was a portable unit, just totally turnkey. It needed water and power and a drain, and could crank out microgreens for restaurants. She was a chef, had designed this thing. Well, that's something we thought about parking on the ranch. We have water, we have power. That doesn't take up a lot of space, but it could generate some extra income. So having some flexibility in that easement document's a good thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing we did, the land trust wanted to put in there that require the owner of the land to be in agriculture. And we said, no. What if somebody wants to turn it back open space, just cut the fences out and let wildlife run across it? You can do that. Our family is going to continue running it, but we didn't want the restriction of focusing on that it had to be in agriculture. With climate change, maybe we run out of water. If we don't get to water out of Union Creek and Washoe Creek, we're not going to grow anything on that ranch. It's super rocky, very shallow soil. We can grow camas again. That's what was here 150 years ago was camas and some pine trees. But we didn't want the restriction that it had to be in agriculture. So, which is kind of funny to think as a rancher that we didn't want that. But we were willing to put other restrictions on it. It couldn't be subdivided. So go figure, whatever.